Welcome back. I'm Joe Elkier. This is Damian White. This is the Gold Spot. Damian, again, we're waking up. Everything's exploding. Gold and silver on the move. It's very exciting. We get a lot of new people coming to the market. One of the big questions is how long is this going to last? Can you give us some insight? Maybe what's happened in the past.
We're starting to look at gold and silver, and we even talked about this back in the beginning of January on the what I called the cup and handle breakout, showing that gold is starting to break out to new all-time highs, and it has been for about a month now, maybe 3 weeks. What happens when it does this is it's more of a long-term scenario. I mean, you go into these commodity super cycles where they have these large inflationary pressures that come in, either caused by an oil shock, maybe in the 70s and 80s, or excessive money printing. If you go back to the 2008, 2009, like financial crisis, we had a very similar thing. When you go into these commodity super cycles, they're usually about 8 to 10 years, I would say, on average. And a lot of that is inflationary. So it's not just gold and silver. Gold is telling you, and that's the way to protect you. But I'm sure everybody knows from going to the grocery store or going to the gas station, you've got all these base commodities that are increasing in value, whether it's wheat or corn or oil. Copper is starting to go along. I know cocoa, so if you have chocolate, all these things are very, very inflationary, and gold is now breaking out for the first time in over 15 years. So I think we have a lot of tailwinds that are coming behind this, and there probably could be some additional factors that will continue it. We have global instability, there's wars breaking out everywhere, and then now that the interest rates have been so high, the Fed is anticipated to cut rates this year. Whether it was originally 5 or 6 times, we're down to about 3 times for the rest of this year. When they start cutting rates, it's going to make the dollar weaker. That becomes an additional tailwind to the rising prices in gold. So I would say right now, we're looking at just the early innings. You put it in a baseball analogy, inning 1 or 2. We have a long game ahead of us. And when you're looking at something with $35 trillion in debt, the United States government is adding $1 trillion of more money in debt that they're printing every 90 days. We've never seen anything like this. So we could be going into extra innings, I would say.
So we're seeing prices kind of exploding in retail, gas prices, energy prices, everything, and it's the correlation between now and that late 70s time frame is very similar. The debt is the big looming difference. What did gold do exactly then, and how far? What's the real potential?
Well, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, it was a completely different dynamic. Yes, we did not have the debt. And therefore, they had the ability to raise rates dramatically to contain inflation. So they got it up to in the high teens, 18, 19%. I'm sure people from the 70s remember buying homes with mortgages that high. They were able to do that to contain inflation. The Federal Reserve now is painted into a corner because they can't really raise the interest rates enough to contain inflation because it would bankrupt our country. And so they're painted into a corner where they might have to actually reduce interest rates so that the government can actually afford to pay this ridiculous amount of debt that we're getting. So back then, though, however, in the 70s and 80s, there were cycles. And I think we've talked about this before on the Gold Spot, where it went in waves. So you get the first wave of inflation, and then it seems like it's coming down. And then all of a sudden, the inflation troughs and starts another rise up. And I think we're starting to see that. Well, we may be currently, in our current situation, going into our second wave up when everyone thinks it's starting to be contained.
That was the second head fake kind of back then with the Fed, right?
Well,
they said the same. We got it under control, kind of like they thought we did now.
They raised and lowered rates consistently through that period of time. They'd raise it a couple percent and they'd pull it back. They had a little more wiggle room because they didn't have this debt to deal with. So this is kind of the wild card or the albatross. We don't know really what's going to happen. The debt is certainly the canary in the coal mine. Back then, when they were raising rates, it was still, the gold was going up with a strong dollar and increasing interest rates, which is what we're seeing now. It's telling you it doesn't matter. There's people buying gold regardless of price just to protect themselves from devaluations of currencies. Back in the 70s and 80s, gold was, at one point it was at $60 an ounce. It went to $800 an ounce with interest rates in the high teens. It completely disregarded it. If you were to do that situation today with gold, say back a month ago at $2,000 price level, that 1,500% price increase would take us to $30,000. Now, it sounds like a crazy number, but there's a precedent for it. And with the instability in the world, I still think, and I've said it before, that gold is going to shock people. The retail individuals like us and our viewers are not big owners of gold, less than 1% holdings. There has been a heavy bid buying, and it's large money. It's central banks, it's countries, it's sovereign nation wealth funds. They know that the dollar and other currencies around the world, the fiat currencies, are in a lot of trouble. And I think we're just starting to, it's just starting to sniff it out, and we could be in for, very high prices in gold, which does lead to the fact that there will be problems. Right. It's going up because the world is not a perfect place right now.
Well, central banks are giving us a big hint with how much they're stockpiling gold. Yeah. So, the world is waking up to real money. Us little folks are kind of the last to really understand it, but we're going to see more as the years go on. So go to our website, request information, give us a call. We're more than happy to help. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next week.
If you enjoyed today's Gold Spot, like or subscribe to both our YouTube or our Rumble channels. Also, comment below if you have any questions or if you want to hear us talk about something specific in a future video.